always causing a scene. She's a brown blue straw Atlanta gold cowgirl. She's the reigning rodeo queen. Well, just wait, you'll see how the whiskey makes her hips sway. By the way, she's with me. You gotta love the way she moves when she's all played. She's a stronger, she needs a harder drink in her hand. Give her some whiskey, let's make it sour and get this other girl to dance. Whiskey sour.
Well, howdy, folks. You're listening to Jefferson Republic Radio, and we're coming to you live and very, very happy to be here and share some of the thoughts and processes with regards to getting back our liberties and our rights. And we're here with co-host Drew Lamb. My name is Gary Lake. We are liberty and freedom-minded activists on the front lines fighting tyranny. Jefferson Republic Radio is a badass, rodeo agrarian, patriotic group of like-minded people inspiring we the people to take back America into a constitutional form of governance, one vote, one county at a time. Now, Jefferson Republic Radio reports on and covers many social, economic, cultural, logistical, historical, and constitutional aspects of the county-based Republic movement. Jefferson Republic Radio is poised to educate and inspire by serving as a network hub, providing interviews, debate, related music, and timely information from local leadership as the movement grows. Once again, we are badass, rodeo agrarian, patriotism with a splash of pop. Tonight, our guests are constitutional from Josephine, Oregon. Tom McGurgan from Oath Keepers, and basically, along with Tom McGurgan, I think we might have Joseph Rice from Oath Keepers as well. Now, basically, we are ready to go. This is an inaugural show, so bear with us. Drew, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. We're getting some feedback from Joe, so I'm not sure what kind of issues he's got going on his mic there. Mr. Rice, can you hear us on your audio?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Are you on Skype or?
I'm on Skype.
You're on Skype. You're on a landline. Are you running a microphone setup or headphones or something?
No, I have headphones on and just talking through an iPad.
Okay. We're getting a little bit of feedback. It's sounding like it's cleaned up.
Okay.
Yes, Gary. So we've got Joseph Rice from Tom about the people on the right.
Okay, we're just getting major feedback there, Drew.
Yes, this is coming off of Joseph's Skype, it sounds like here. Let's see. So how we can clean Joseph up a little bit. If you have a headset, it'd be good to try plugging it in or earphones or something. That might help.
Yeah, I'm on a headset now.
Oh, well, maybe try unplugging it then.
Hey, Drew, just for the record, I just got a hold of Sheriff Gilbertson, and he's going to be calling you in on the landline.
Okay, and we'll add him in.
Okay, Joseph, how you doing?
Set the shit bucket outside the front door.
And we have Sheriff Gilbertson on the line right now.
Hi, Sheriff Gilbertson. How are you today?
Good, thank you.
Very good. Now, real quick, I just want to try to take care of a technical problem. Drew, is there any way we can? We've got feedback and stuff going on that I can hear.
Yeah. So let's pull Joseph in a little bit when we're ready.
Okay, let's do that. Great.
Okay.
And then Tom, how you doing? You still there?
Yes, sir, I am.
Okay, you sound good. Okay. Always these lovely little technical aspects. Sheriff Gilbertson, so thank you very much for being on our show tonight.
You're welcome.
Could you just give us a little background about yourself? I'd toot your horn, but there's so much to say about you. I wouldn't know where to stop.
I don't like tooting my horn at all. I've been in law enforcement now about 40 years. I started back in '74 with a city police department in the state of Iowa. I've got a background in Army, Navy, Air Force, and State Department. Been in different theaters. I've been in Vietnam, Bosnia, Kosovo, and Iraq. With the State Department, I was in Bosnia, Kosovo, and Iraq. Been sheriff now since 2007 here in Josephine County, Oregon. So, yeah, I enjoy what I do.
Well, Sheriff Gilbertson, basically, we had a really good conversation. We always have good conversations. In fact, you were very gracious in being on a panel with myself and some other people with regards to the water issues and various other things in Southern Oregon and Northern California, specifically Josephine, Jackson, Klamath, and Siskiyou counties. So we actually were warning people, and I think that was like in 2010 or 2011, and we were actually warning people about what was about to happen, and people haven't really taken heed. And so you and I had a really good conversation about some of the issues that you're going through right now with your department, with regards to financial restrictions and basically apathy, voter apathy. So what I would like to know is you're a constitutional sheriff and you've got a tremendous group of people that you are involved with regards to the other constitutional sheriffs, and I would start to name them, Sheriff Lopi and all the different names that are, I'd leave too many out. But you were talking about some really interesting things that I believe dovetailed with the Jefferson Republic movement, or the Siskiyou, or the Josephine Republic movement, and that's basically getting back control at a local level. And now, personally, I think that a constitutional sheriff is the only way we can do that. And can you elaborate on some of the things that you're dealing with?
Well, as far as who has the horsepower to make the difference, I think you need to start with your county commissioners. They need to push this issue, and the state needs to push the issue. I'm going to refer people to look at American Land Council, I think it's called. There's a gentleman, a representative from the state of Utah, named Ken Ivory, and if you Google, the internet, you can find his website. And it really clearly walks everyone through the things that are really important in taking our land back. Just in a real quick overview, and I'm not an expert on this, but way back when the eastern states had statehood. Now, keep in mind, we've all signed the same statehood agreement when we went from a territorial to a statehood, but the public lands were ceded back to the federal government only long enough for them to dispose of those lands. So it was a land trust that was established all those years ago. The eastern states, I believe it was a senator from Missouri, got all the eastern states together and said, wait a minute, this is wrong. We are sovereign states. We joined this pact called the U.S. Constitution. And in this pact, you still have state sovereignty. And as a sovereign state, the land within that state belongs to that state, not this federal government. And they won that case. And if you look on the map that you'll see on the American Land Council program, you'll see a map that very, very little of the eastern states have any public lands in them at all. Now let's talk about the western states, which we are a part of. And frankly, it's my opinion that the federal government wants to control this because the wealth of our nation is here. We have the resources, the natural resources, both minerals and timber and so on and so forth. We are being treated differently in that, like my county, for example, 70% of the county is managed by public lands. Now, we signed the same agreement when we took statehood, and under the Enabling Act, all states were to be treated the same. Well, let's jump now. Let's fast track to 1959 when Hawaii became a state. When they became a state, they were given their public lands. So in essence, what they've done is they've created a first and a second-class state. The eastern states and Hawaii are first-class states because they're in possession of their public lands. We, however, are not being treated the same. And I think that's the premise that Ken Ivory used. They wrote legislation. It passed in the state of Utah. And I believe that December 31st of this year, the public lands are going to be brought back to the state level. You know, and very important, very critical to all of us. And I talk in terms of jobs, financial stability coming back, is that if we control these lands at the local level, these environmentalist groups lose their standing. Look at, if you would, Apache County, Arizona went through this. And my understanding of how that transpired was under the health, safety, and welfare of the community, which was extremely important. The commissioner and the sheriff stood together on this issue. Because of the massive forest fires that we all experience today, it does create a threat to the health, safety, and welfare of the community, well beyond the borders of the timbers that we're talking about, the federal lands. And as a result, they basically told the U.S. Forest Service, look, we're going to take these lands back and we're going to manage them ourselves because we think we can do a better job at it. Well, they did, and there was some posturing that went back and forth. But at the end of the day, the U.S. Forest Service apparently came back to them and said, you know, this worked out so well. We got hundreds of thousands of more acres. We'd like you to do the same. Now, Apache County is real similar to our county in that we were sustained by the revenue generated off our lands in Josephine County as well. Now, Apache County had 2 sawmills, and they finally closed the second one down some years ago. They took the lands back under their management. Now they have 2 refurbished sawmills plus 2 brand new ones. They've created jobs. They've generated revenue. And my understanding is the Washington came back and said, you know what, this works out so well, this should be a template for the rest of the nation. And then, like I say, Ken Ivory is doing what he's doing in the state of Utah. They've taken a positive step. The legislation has actually passed law, and we'll see how that transpires. But, you know, bottom line is the economic dilemma that we're all facing throughout the entire United States is pretty dire, and there's nothing I see on the near horizon that's going to fix that other than we need to put people back to work. I spent 6 years in Bosnia and Kosovo, and I have to say that, in my opinion, they probably would not have had the revolutions in those 2 countries if people would have had jobs. I saw good people do really, really, really bad things. And when it comes to feeding your family, or they're starving, a lot of people, good people, would do bad things. I've seen it. I saw it happen. Having said that, you know, that's, in my opinion, the biggest issue here is we need to take the public lands back, develop them, and do it in a proper way. You know, I feel like I'm a conservationist. If I were to catch somebody up there doing something illegal, I'd arrest them in a heartbeat. I think we all need to secure and protect our wildlands for the futures of the generations yet to come.
You know,
but I think we could do a much better job, and certainly cheaper,
absolutely,
than what the federal government's done.
Absolutely.
I'll take a breath now.
No, I mean, everything that you're saying, it just absolutely makes total sense, and that's basically what the Jefferson Republic movement, which it could be, like I said, or what I've always said, it could be the Siskiyou Republic, or it could be the Josephine Republic. It could be, you know, any county or you know, the bottom line is this, is that we have to take back, we have to basically free up our ability to, you know, have a vote, our vote count. I mean, our voice be heard, and it's not happening right now. I see parallels between, and you know that I used to be a councilman for the Cudahy Tribe of California, and the co-host Salmon, debacle scam. They're trying to take out 4 perfectly good dams on the Klamath River, which in reality, they're really not trying to do that. They're trying to get NGOs and groups in control to sell water to Southern California. Now, my dog in the fight, so to speak, is the Shasta people, and I was a councilman, vice chairman of the Shasta people, and they're using environmental terroristic tactics to basically depopulate and socioeconomically destroy rural America, the agrarian way of life. And so what the Jefferson Republic we're trying to do is we're trying to bring together constitutional sheriffs and patriotic citizens, activists that can limit this rampant, erratic, rabid control that is being exerted over us, this tyranny, through stupid legislation, and people just aren't paying attention. So I think the public lands, that's a huge place. That's actually where the race is. The race is getting control of public lands and resources. And you're now, if you don't mind, how, from a financial standpoint, how are you being choked, Sheriff Gilbertson? I mean, I know
I'm glad you asked that question. We were up to, I believe, about $11.4 million budget. And then in 2012, we went to a $4.5 million budget. And this next year, my understanding is I'm going to be down to, they're going to cut me again by 43% more. So, I'm looking now at how am I going to do the state-required mandate services. Patrol will be non-existent. My dispatch, I may lose that. I may lose records. We'll have a jail, but we're not sure if we can cover civil and court security with the amount of money that they're telling us that is coming. There is a House Bill 3453 here in the state of Oregon, whereas if a county is distressed, they can holler uncle to the state, and the state will come in and they won't. I don't believe they can possibly fix everything we've got going, but it is a step in providing some civility in terms of safety to the community. However, commissioners are reluctant to just take that step, and I certainly understand that. In fact, I just asked a question a little bit ago over the internet to the Sheriff's Association. What am I going to do if I can't do the state-mandated services, i.e. patrol? Under ORS 206010, the first 2 paragraphs is a mandate. It says the sheriff shall. And it basically says that I have to arrest people that break the law and commit them to jail or prison. I can't do that because I don't have the resources of patrol to do that. Right now, we're being supported by the state of Oregon, OSP. We originally had 4 troopers down here. They brought in 7 additional. The stat I can share with you, and I think I got these numbers are not in front of me, but I believe in 2013 they did 148 of their own investigations. They did, I believe, 973 for my county on top of their own.
Wow.
We've increased the state police's workload by 72%. And I don't know how long they can sustain that. They certainly don't have the resources to go into all these counties. And we're talking a lot of counties are now starting to feel the same squeeze that we've experienced for the last 2 years. So it's not endemic just to us. It's spreading.
It seems like it honestly seems like that they are trying to dismantle your department. I'm sure if there wasn't a constitutional sheriff in running Josephine County or the sheriff's department, I'm thinking you would probably be in a position to have access to easier funds. It just seems like every time that somebody is trying to do something for we the people, that there is a big boot on our necks. And you're a military guy. You're a of law enforcement, and and people are trying to step on your neck. It doesn't make any sense to me. It's almost like, you lose your budget, and they think they're weakening you. But on the other hand, I think that it's basically embracing or empowering the patriots that would support you. And but you got to have money,
Gary, let me ask you this: when did it become a radical notion in our country to talk about the Constitution? Because when you do, people raise an eyebrow and they go, "You're a radical." Now, when did that change? That really bothers me. Our Constitution was established by some people that really were far-out thinkers. And if the laws were written back then so that the average person could understand them. They had the Federalist Papers written so that if you didn't understand what you were reading, you could go to that and you could go, find out what the intent was. But the intent of these laws has changed. Now we get people with a pen and a telephone writing executive orders. To me, an executive order, even from the president, to me is a office memo to his subordinates, tell them what they want. But that is not law. Article 1, Section 1, I believe it is, clearly says the making law belongs to Congress. So for people to sit there and write executive orders at any level, I have to question that. By what authority? The 10th Amendment, the enumeration of power. That just doesn't seem to come into focus of these people. In fact, it was in 2011 I got a document from the White House called, the Strategic Implementation Plan. And on page 8, it talks about signed by the President and voted on by, I believe, Congress.
The
U.S. Attorney would be the chief law enforcement official in that district.
Is this the letter, Gil? Is this the letter that? Okay, does this have to do with the letter that you wrote to Vice President Biden?
No, that's a different thing.
Oh, okay. Sorry, No,
that's something else. But what bothers me is, they talked about Holder the other day as the chief law enforcement official. Correct me if I'm wrong here. He's a prosecutor.
Yeah.
He doesn't have the power to arrest somebody. He has to take the case to a grand jury, get an indictment, get a warrant, and then give it over to the police so that the police can make the arrest. Now, if I said that wrong, correct me. But he's a prosecutor. So, but what bothers me is, over a period of all these years, we've been deprogrammed and reprogrammed to think in a different way. And things so subtle as chief law enforcement official or chief law enforcement prosecutor, changing that one word from prosecutor to official, takes on a whole different meaning. And we know that systemically, throughout the United States, the federal government has continued to grow. In fact, the last time I checked, I believe there was 21.3 million federal employees. Now, for enumerated powers and, don't get me wrong, a lot of these people are good people. There's no question about it.
Oh, yeah, of course.
But what they do is they get into office and they want to show their boss that they're good at what they do, and they expand on what needs to be accomplished, and that in turn exponentially grows more personnel,
right.
And it just doesn't stop. It continues to grow, and I think that's why we have so many federal employees today.
Well, we're so
and
close.
Of all the law enforcement officials, organizations out there at the federal level, I'm sorry, where in the 10th Amendment do they get that authority?
Yeah, we're so close in Siskiyou County to, there's a tipping point. I think basically when there's 51% of a county or a state or a city or a whatever is federal employees, then I think that's when the doo-doo hits the fan. Because they're loyal to their paycheck and not to the people.
Correct. I think they lose sight of, it's the people that run this government. But by today's standards, that's outdated. The government runs the people. In fact, I can't think of any facet of my life, or even your life, that the federal government hasn't somehow, in some way, infringed on or become involved in. If you can think of any, please share it with me. But where did they get all this power?
Those are some very, very bold statements coming from a sheriff. So do you not feel like publicly stating those things, it puts your financial situation in jeopardy? I mean,
it's like this, Gary. I signed an oath. I swore to an oath of office, and it was very clear what I was doing. I shouldn't be the sheriff if I can't do that. So, will I stand up to the government? Of course I will. It may be ineffectual, and I may get laughed at. That's fine. I took an oath, and I believe in it. I took an oath in the military. I took an oath in the law enforcement. I took an oath as a sheriff. And the sheriff's office, as you well know, is regardless of who's sitting in the chair, is such a critical position to maintain. Do not lose your sheriff's offices anywhere in the country, and that is also happening. Sheriffs are being dethroned, if you would, but don't let that happen in any of the counties out there. They can stand up to protect you, the people. I work for the people. I don't work for the government. I work for the people. And
that is
if I'm not doing my job, the people damn well better kick me out of it.
And there you go. It's like I don't know how to say this without feeling sappy for saying it. So forgive me, but you're a hero, and yet you're hung out on the clotheslines. Now, I don't know if the conundrum is a good word, but you actually now in California, let's say Sheriff Lope, he swears to constitutional, the Constitution, the original Constitution, and then he swears to a state constitution.
And I do as
and you do too. Okay, so now, and please, if I'm out of line, let me know. But let's try to put this into perspective for me. Right now, I truly believe that we're not operating as a country under a constitutional government, but instead we're a corporate America, not a constitutional America. How do you negotiate that?
One day at a time.
What a great response.
Well, you got to do what you think is right, and I feel I have some pretty solid core values from my upbringing, and you don't lie, you do the right thing, and you treat people fair. I think our Constitution was based on those kind of principles as well. There's some cloudy issues that come up, and frankly, I am not, and I never have claimed to be a scholar on Constitution or constitutional issues. I'm a student, and there isn't a day go by that I'm not trying to learn something more about it. I got a long ways to go, and I'll be the first to say that, but, I do believe in it. I swore an oath to it, and I will abide by that oath.
Well, what do you feel? Okay, so you've got a little bit of an understanding. I mean, we've have shared podiums and radio and probably television. Who knows? But so you've got a little bit of an understanding of the Jefferson Republic movement, which could be a Siskiyou or a Josephine movement. Can you just give me your thoughts on that? I mean, this is just a total open forum. I mean, this is like heartstrings that everybody can hear. And what are your feelings?
I think it's a good idea. Not everybody's going to agree with that. I understand that. If that's what it takes to take us back to what we originally stood up to do, I think it's a good thing. Will there be hiccups? I'm sure there will. I certainly cannot speak for this county. I'm just speaking personally, my own feeling and beliefs. But whatever the people here decide they want to do, that's who I work for. That's my boss, and I'm going to do what they want to do. if they decide they want to, join the state of Jefferson or whatever it's called, I'll go along with them. Again, like I say, it's the people that need to make this choice.
Right. Well, very well put. And that's actually what the Jefferson Republic, or the Republic movement, is all about. I think that the Republic movement, we the people, if we just have another tool to basically hold a board of supervisors or a county council or whatever definition, I think it's a good thing. I think that anything that is in the hands of the people, where the people have the rights to have their opinions and their views count, I think that's an important thing. What I'd like to do is I'm not the most intelligent person in this forum today, and I know that you're busy. And what I'd like to do is I'd like to ask Drew, which is kindly sitting idle, to bring in, I don't know if Joseph Rice or Tom, either any of, but if they have some things that they want to ask you or interject,
please bring them on board. They're good men.
Very good.
I know them both.
Drew.
Yeah, Gary, thanks for including me. I've been in the chat. We have a very lively chat today, and people are talking about the Jefferson Republic, and it looks like for our debut here on UCY that we're getting a lot of love and support. So
I like to hear that. Thank you.
Yeah. So one of my questions for Sheriff Gilbertson is how does he feel about the militarization of the police that we're seeing across the country?
I think what's going on is hysteria, just out of control. Think about this and just reflect back on your own law enforcement agencies, local, state. What you see are military-type uniforms, equipment. We've been using ballistic helmets forever for SWAT teams. We've been using semi-automatic, fully automatic weapons, military-style weapons. I started in '74. We were using them back then. We're using armored vehicles. What's wrong with that? You're the cop, okay, and you're going to a situation where your life's on the line. You want to do it in a car that is not protected, or you want to do it in a vehicle that's armored? It's an easy choice for me. I've been in those situations, and we all have the right to go home after a day's work, just like you and Mom and Dad and Gene and uncles and everybody. I think what you're seeing is this hysteria. It's going crazy, driven by a media that's out of control, trying for sensationalism. I don't see this militarization. What I see is, under this 1033 program, there's a lot of military-type equipment that is very safe and functional for our purposes. And if used appropriately, it will save law enforcement from losing their lives, and potentially those people we serve as well. So I disagree with this militarization thing. I think it's somebody just hyped up, and the media drove it, and people are just in a frenzy over it. And I'm kind of disappointed to see that happen, but reality is what it is.
Well, I'm a bit paranoid personally, and I think if a constitutional sheriff is in charge of those assets, I feel more comfortable. But I do, I've seen things like I live in Medford, for example, and I've noticed that they roll out the SWAT team more often than they used to. Like the vacant building.
Crime's increasing.
well, like the vacant building where Kim's is. And I don't want to take us too far off topic, but there was a robbery there a few weeks ago, and it wasn't really a robbery. I think the people were just really squatters, and they opened a door and parked a vehicle in there, and they sent in the SWAT team. And it seems that because the equipment and gear is there and available, that there's this incentive to use it whenever possible.
Well, again, if it'll save an officer's life or even a citizen's life to do that, it's well worth the effort. Well, we had a bomb trailer in one of the agencies I worked at, and I'm thinking, and at one time we didn't have a bomb trailer, and I actually had a bomb sitting in my lap as I'm driving to dispose of this thing. And I'm thinking to myself, I sure wish I had a bomb trailer. It's an extreme. That's a true story, by the way. But I just, people just need to come back to earth. We've been using this kind of equipment forever. It's a new style of a tactical vehicle. It's called an MRAP, and it is somewhat. It redirects an explosion in a safer manner. Granted, we're not probably going to deal with a lot of explosives, but if you do, it sure would be nice to have. And quite frankly, if my agency is too small right now to garner any of these grants and any equipment. I did get 3 Humvees a couple of years ago, but I had a workforce back then. I probably wouldn't get anything today because I'm just too small. If I could have got an MRAP, I'd have loved to have had one. And would I use it for the right purposes? Well, absolutely. You know what? The chief of police here in Grants Pass does that. People are just not used to seeing this huge, monstrous armored vehicle out there in the streets, and it's easy with the public hysteria going on right now about militarization that they jump on board with that, and that's a shame. If you use it properly, there's a purpose for it.
Can I call you Gil? Because that's what I always call you, Gil.
Absolutely.
Sorry, I don't mean to be...
Oh, I work for the people. My name's Gil. Thank you.
I know, it's like I stumble every time. But, Gil, you said that you're too small. You're a county, okay? You know what? I don't think you're too small. I think, as a constitutional sheriff, I think that you have a moral and fiduciary obligation, and you're being responsible. Because I know that there's a lot of people that got those vehicles, and they don't really have a use for them, and I don't even know how they can financially keep them serviced. Do you have any input on that at all?
Yeah, we frankly, my agency couldn't afford to maintain one. Grants Pass, they're in a better financial situation than we are. They've got a piece of equipment called an MRAP, and they're willing to share it if we need it. And Jackson County they've been over backward helping Josephine County many, many times over. I've had to rely on their tactical teams. I've used OSP tactical teams. I've used Grants Pass tactical teams. We don't have those resources they do, and thank goodness that they're willing to share that with us when it's needed. But again, if I had a sufficient force here, I'd be looking for that kind of equipment too. It can save lives.
Yeah, and therein lies. It seems like, and Drew, you can probably help me out on this, but it seems like the constitutional sheriffs, the good guys, they're keeping finances and their responsibility to the public, in check, close to the vest, at heart.
Sure, and I was following the chat here, and some people were saying, "Hey, well, you guys know that ISIS has crossed the border. That's been in the news recently. And we're probably going to see some terrorist attacks that are either actually ISIS or blamed on ISIS by the government. A so-called false flag. But if that's true, and this Islamic Caliphate is being brought into our backyard, I would like my constitutional sheriff to have an MRAP or two.
Yeah,
I appreciate hearing that. But I got to say this for even the city police, other sheriffs that are not quote constitutionalists. We're all cut of the same cloth. We really are, and our desire is to protect the people that put us in these positions. Throughout the entire country, throughout history, you always get a bad cop. There's always one somewhere. And when one bad cop does something, 10 good cops suffer as a result of it. So if a cop goes bad, he needs to be dealt with, and dealt with quickly and appropriately. But to look at all the other cops with an eyebrow lifted. These guys are good guys out there. They've got your heart and your health, safety, and welfare in their hearts. That's what they're there for. A lot of good people out there.
Yeah, definitely, and absolutely, I totally agree with you on that, Gil. And that's probably what is happening. I mean, it seems like the more we stand behind our heroes, the more we're chastised in whatever's popular in society today. But going back to what Drew was saying, and Drew, help me out on this. I just feel like you're getting a bad rap.
Well, you don't want to throw all law enforcement officers and all departments into the same pile and say they're all bad or they're all good.
But isn't that kind of what they're doing right now with this quote militarization?
Exactly.
Well,
yes,
to a
kind of
point,
falls in that same category.
But frankly, when I saw what was going on after the Boston bombing, I was terribly upset and very alarmed to see people being forced from their homes and their homes being searched without warrants. And I mean, it was ridiculous given what happened and the likelihood of some bomber being in one of these houses was just outrageous.
Hey Drew, you know what? That is a great point. And that's city, and then we've got rural agrarian, and it seems like, and I apologize for interrupting you because there's people that are listening that have told me and chastised me. Don't interrupt Drew. He makes sense.
Well, sometimes. I don't know if I do.
But I think that the constitutional sheriffs and the agrarian way of life, or the rural America, is being attacked. And it seems like, and you're right, Drew, but it seems like, I mean, I read somewhere that like 90% of media is owned by 9%, or 0.9, or whatever. I mean, it was just this phenomenal equation, basically, that corporate America owns 90+% of all media.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that what is being portrayed in the media is so unrealistic to the heroes and the champions. And I'm talking man, woman, and child. The heroes of America. It's so contrary. It's like we have Sheriff Gilbertson, and he's a constitutional sheriff, yet he's fighting this soiree or this. God, I don't know. I don't want to cuss, but and yet what he said about having proper protection versus not being able to be afford it. I mean, it makes total sense. Why are the heroes being attacked in America? That's, I guess, my question to both Drew and to Sheriff Gilbertson.
I think a lot of it's media driven, and it's for sensationalism. Should we expect we're probably going to see ISIS or similar type of attacks in the country? Well, I think that's inevitable. It's going to happen. There's so many radicals that live in our country that went over there, and they got a passport to come back, and I believe Homeland Security is looking into that now to deal with that. But it is what it is, and I think we live in that kind of a world today. So school shootings, we're going to see more. It's reality.
Gil, you've been around the world. You're military. You've seen things that 99.9% of everybody have not, and you have, your wisdom, your experience, life experience, is so important to us on a geographical basis, and that's us. When I say us, I'm talking about Northern California, Southern Oregon. I mean, I'm going to be selfish, the Shasta territory. And why aren't people listening to you?
But Americans respond well when they confront a crisis. Most of them don't take the time to plan for it. So, when it springs on us, we respond, and that's just how we deal with things. One of the things I want to share that you just kind of triggered in my mind was, living in Bosnia and Kosovo for 6 years, we stood up law enforcement from scratch, and it was corrupt to start with. We put the American model within those two countries, and it flourished. I was a police chief in Kosovo, in the city of Pristina. There were 4 different stations. I had Station 2. We were the most crime-riddled of all of them. And we had a population just in my section of 250,000 people. I had, I believe, 350 officers. And we implemented the American-style neighborhood watch. And within 2 years, we turned it into a bedroom community. We were a bedroom community. The other 3 stations were still suffering. So it works. And the reason I bring that up is that's some of the experience I bring to this office. I've been working on a continuity of government, continuity of services, not knowing where we're going to end up eventually. Our economy is kind of teetering. We could have an earthquake. We could have a natural phenomenon of some sort, and we're not going to be able to sustain ourselves or sustain our government. I've developed 3 levels of neighborhood watch, depending on how bad things get and what kind of crisis we're facing, that we've got a plan in place or that we're working on so that we can still take care of the people. Continuity of government is extremely important. Things, when I was in Macedonia, I was put in charge of transforming the Stankovic camp, it was called, in Macedonia. It was a refugee camp. We had about 28,000 population living in there. And things like they didn't collect the porta potties and the feces and the stench and the issues had to be taken care of, and I talked about garbage here, for example. If we had an earthquake or if things just for some reason, weren't what they are today, garbage alone, somebody's going to have to pick it up. And I talked to one of the local garbage guys here, and he said that he would do that. Well, if you don't, you're going to have all kinds of vermin and diseases and everything else. And I've approached the city, the police chief, and the city manager, and the OSP, the state police, and trying to bring them all in so that we could form basically some kind of a plan to protect the people. Continuity of services, continuity of government. You can't just be helter-skelter. Things get bad, there's going to be gangs immediately popping up, and somebody's going to have to deal with that. So, that's some of the experience that I bring to this community, and I've been working on it for a couple of years, and we're making progress. It's just very difficult to get people to take the time to sit down and think these things through, but that hasn't deterred me. We're just going to keep plugging away at it.
Well, okay, Gil, I would like to bring in what I understand to be a friend of yours, Joseph Rice. And
okay, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm not normally long-winded.
No.
Today, so I apologize.
Gil, you're not long-winded. This is incredible. I mean, for me to be able to sit silent is extraordinary. So now this is what I would like to do for our listeners. I would like to. I'm just going to kind of free for all between you and Joseph. I mean, both of you have. I mean, Joseph is military minded. Okay, I would like to just let you guys roll with regards to taking back America. Now, my idea and the Jefferson Republic movement's idea is one county at a time, through constitutional sheriffs, through people like Joseph and Tom and Drew and Anthony and Tiso and Sheriff Lopi and all these patriots. But I would like to just open the mic up to you and Joseph and have you guys just kind of go back and forth on what do we got, what do we do, how do we take it back? And I'm going to leave it at that. You guys are open.
Hey, Gil.
Hey, Joe, how you doing?
Good. How you doing, sir?
Good.
Well,
I've been talking. I'm losing my voice. Go ahead.
Well, kind of listening to the discussion, I think what you're describing, in America and within the counties is a sense of frustration from the people. And, Gil is spot on with his narrative of how we have reached the point that we've reached, how we have gotten here. And America and Americans are a society of, we like that instant gratification. We want it right now. But where we are in our nation, we didn't get here over the last 4 or 5 years. We've arrived here over the last 20, 30 years. And so, we have to take small bites at the apple to reverse this trend, this direction that we're heading as a nation. Like Gil, I've done overseas military work. I came out of 3 tours out of Afghanistan. And as I was sitting here in it, I was home and literally looked at my country and I thought, where has it gone? What's happening here? And I got involved with, Oath Keepers, and I started kind of a crawl, walk, run philosophy, if you will, within Josephine County. And what we looked at is when you look at the big picture, people become overwhelmed. And what we can do is we can become good citizens again. We can take care of our fellow man, our neighbor, our community. And so the crawl part is we start working within our community, our county. The walk part, hopefully that branches out to the state, and the run eventually goes to the nation. But what I'm speaking of is going to take us 20 or 30 years to reverse. But we can't be apathetic about it. We have to start now. And part of it is, as Gil said, our Constitution is a cherished document. Our group here, we've kind of made it a mission to give back to the community, be a positive impact to it, and we've been handing out pocket constitutions. The philosophy and idea behind that is people will hopefully start reading the document again, and they will understand what it does for us, the rights it gives us, how our nation was born, how our nation has been formed, and how we've progressed. And what's kind of been an interesting social experiment in our meetings is we have a very wide and diverse cross-section of the community that will attend an Oath Keeper meeting. And when I say diverse is we will have conservatives to, literally marijuana farmers, to liberals, to everything, however you want to put a label on it. But the one thing that's always amazed me in the cross-section of the group that's all together is we always are able to find the common ground. And the common ground being the respect and cherishing the Constitution and the rights it provides for everybody. And as I listen to the Jefferson Republic, as you've described it, we're kind of doing the same thing. I think everybody in the discussion is thinking the same way, and the discussion is heading the same direction. The frustration I'm seeing from people is they don't believe their voice has an impact. It doesn't seem to matter. It doesn't seem to count. And I think if we start going locally, kind of, if you will, grassroots to a degree, and we start becoming good citizens within our community. And what I mean by that is we work, we provide for our families, but part of that is to turn around and give back to your community in a volunteer basis, be it working on a playground, volunteering at the fairgrounds, a hospital, something, but it's helping each other out. It's developing that sense of community, that spirit that goes along with it. Gil has been faced with incredibly hard challenges just financially trying to run a sheriff's department. And his work ethic is incredible. I mean, the man stands up for what he believes in. He adheres to the Constitution. He has demonstrated in the past that he will stand up to the federal government, and he will support citizens' rights, property owner rights, and at the end of the day, support the Constitution, which is the supreme law of our land. What I think's happened is we, as a citizens, we have a responsibility to do a better job of putting in our elected representatives. And we can't have elections run on popularity contests. We have to get back to hard questions, uncomfortable questions. We have to see the type of individual and the metal they're made out of when we put people into elected office, and ensure that they're going to run efficiently, they're going to run it with integrity, they're going to run it with honor, they're going to adhere to their constitutional oath. And when they don't, we hold them accountable. And that can be through transparency, through newspaper articles, and, to extreme situations, recalling them back out of office and putting in somebody else that understands what the people want, their representation. Because if you read the Constitution, it does not say we the government, it says we the people. It is our government, and we are responsible for maintaining it. A famous quote, when Ben Franklin came out of the Constitutional Convention, a woman asked me, he goes, "Mr. Franklin, what have you given us?" He said, yes. "We've given you a constitutional republic if you can keep it." Beautiful. And I think the days that we're facing right now is that part, if we can keep it.
Yeah, it's almost like great governments last only so long. And I think it's because they forget that they transition into they forget that it's we the people. And the bottom line is this: we the people running government, not government ruining the people. And that's kind of where we're at.
It is. And, with Sheriff Gilbertson, we've got a diamond in the rough, so to speak. People tend, and the government tends to do what is, popular opinion does not mean it's the right thing. And
politically correct sucks.
Yes. Political correctness, I tend to avoid that at times.
Hey, Joseph, actually, you know what, Joseph, I'm being rude.
No
problem. Can I get a little background on you, please?
Sure. What are you looking for?
Who are you looking at? Listen, I got some playgrounds in my mind too. So, no, seriously, can you just give us just a basic rundown? I know I didn't introduce you properly, and I really think I should, because anybody that's listening right now, man, if they've got anything, they know they're tapped into an incredible conversation. So if you would please just give me a little intel on yourself, like I made Sheriff Gilbertson. No, I didn't make him do anything. The guy is phenomenal. But anyhow, you know what I'm saying.
Yeah. Well, basically, I went in the National Guard. I actually joined the Massachusetts National Guard, the original militia in the nation. I went through U.S. Army flight training. I served with the Army for a 17-year period of time. It took me all over the world. And probably the last 10-plus years, I've been working in the commercial industry and doing subcontracting work, a variety of regulatory compliance in different issues. I do a lot of interface with government entities and actually congressional type of work. I've fought those battles and experienced those frustrations that I think everyone sees on a daily level. And most recently, I was working overseas in Afghanistan until I was actually injured. And so I'm kind of licking my wounds and convalescing right now and trying to get myself put back together.
So basically, Joseph, through that was a very, very humble segue, which Sheriff Gilbertson did earlier. So anyhow, I just want you're a hero, and
I can't say that, and
no, you can't.
I'm sorry, I'm going to stop you there. I'm not.
No, you can't say that.
I had the honor and the privilege to serve my nation, my country, my fellow man. I don't think of myself that way. I would never describe it. I mean, the heroes are those guys that made the ultimate sacrifice for our nation's freedoms. I am not in that category.
That's a military man. Okay, so we will beg to differ. I think you're a hero. You're almost a hero when you get to that threshold. However, you're a hero, and Gil's a hero. And so anyhow, okay, let's get back to the conversation. So, Gil, what I would like to hear you and Joseph dialogue a little bit. I mean,
okay. Well, I was enjoying listening to what he had to say personally.
So was I. But
we've had these conversations before, and we think a lot alike in many, many ways.
If you kind of dialogue with Gil and what's going on, Gil he is fully dedicated. If you describe a public servant and what a public servant is meant to be and what a public servant is supposed to do, Sheriff Gilbertson is that definition. He truly cares about Josephine County. He cares about the citizens, the people. I have personally witnessed him go well above and beyond what a normal individual would do within a job framework or structure. And, there are times you have to sit back, you scratch your head, because he has faced monumental financial hurdles in his department. It's not enough money to keep the patrols going, to keep the jail going. And, realistically, the sheriff is a manager. He manages his deputies and ensures those deputies go out on patrol and offer services to the citizens in protection, investigation, those things. Keep our community safe. But we have a situation in Josephine County where our sheriff puts on the manager's hat till 4:30, 5 o'clock in the afternoon. He takes it off, and then he puts on the patrol deputy hat. And then he's out there responding to calls. He's doing different things. And the frustration is he does not have control over his budget. And as he mentioned earlier in the conversation, the Josephine County Commissioners have control over the public safety budget in the county. And for whatever lack or reason, they consistently refuse to fund the Sheriff's Department at the level it requires it to be funded.
Joe, if I can interrupt, by law, it's their responsibility to fund the sheriff's office. It's my job not to ask for the money, but rather to take what I've been given and do the best I can with it. But I'm going to digress for just a second. The real heroes of this agency are the men and women that are still here. These guys are burning out. They can't keep this pace up much longer. We looked at 65% of our personnel leaving in 2012. I'm now told we're going to lose another 40, possibly 43% of our budget. The people here, they've stuck it out. Most of our people have migrated on to someplace where they got a permanent job. A lot of the officers working for the city of Grants Pass came from this sheriff's office. This sheriff's office has been struggling for many, many years. It's a matter of there's no hidden money. I hear that all the time. They don't trust the commissioners. I don't trust government either. But the commissioners that we've had have been pretty straightforward of late. And they don't have any hidden money. The books are there to be examined. It's online. People can see where it's at and where it's going. I would personally like to see, and maybe this is a selfish perspective, but I'd like to see more money dedicated to public safety. And if that means you have to close down some other shops, It is what it is, and respectfully, I'm sorry that we are where we are today. But I'm looking now at the amount of money I'm looking at for next year. Will not have patrol, will not have a dispatch, will not have records. I'm going to have to combine those services somehow into put that hat on somebody else that's still going to be behind. Our jail is going to cut back our beds drastically. We're cut down. I believe the number is something like 20. We're going to be down to somewhere around 27 people to run this entire operation. I may have already said this earlier today. I wrote an email to the Sheriff's Association and asked them, at what point does this become such a unsafe situation that we need outside help? The commissioners can make that declaration, and I don't see them willing to step up to that. And if there's some other way we can deal with this, I'd rather do it that way as well. But
Gil,
let me finish this real quick.
Please.
I can't do the mandated services that a sheriff is obligated to deal with in this county, I've got to do something.
Hey,
what happens there with Gil is he's the sheriff, and so he becomes the focal point for the community outrage, and it's an unfair situation, but it's the reality of the situation. And who could run a business, who could run a department faced with what he's faced with?
And that is so correct, Joseph. And this is why I so firmly believe, my heart of hearts believes in the Republic movement, because I know that the constitutional people, the people that believe in a constitutional form of the original Republic government, would be holding him up high. That's what dovetails. And I know we haven't gotten into Oath Keepers, and we're going to get with Tom here in a little bit. But I just believe that America right now needs heroes. And, romantically speaking, that's just, we have to push some buttons. We have to inspire. We have to invoke passion. This has got to be, Hollywood has done such a great job of dismantling California. Good gosh, and I'm in California. I'm in tribal leadership positions, and the tribalism and the Endangered Species Act and the Coho salmon and the spotted owl. Those are all tools of destruction to the agrarian rural way of life.
Well, when you talk about heroes and you talk about those things, and that's kind of where I come back and I speak about being a good citizen. And you don't have to be a hero to be a good citizen. A good citizen, in my mind, and this is just, the world according to Joseph, if you will, it's somebody that, they live their life with honor, they live their life with integrity, they help out when they're able to help out. You don't live a life of volunteering all the time, but when you see a wrong, you attempt to right the wrong.
Yes.
You become involved in your community. Vote. Gil talked about the lack of voters. When we talk about registering the voting, you talk about, and that's one of the things, when you talk about a constitutional republic and you talked about mob rule, well, a democracy tends to be mob rule.
Yes.
A constitutional republic establishes that we are a nation of laws. And so we are not governed by the whim or will of man. We're governed by the laws.
Yes.
And that puts out a level playing ground for all. Now, of course, we have to elect into position the individuals, the representatives that will put those laws in place, and we have to do a good job of our selection for those representatives. In doing so, I'm amazed and stunned at the number of people I come across in Josephine County that will say, I don't vote. I'm not registered to vote. And I don't think those individuals understand when they say, I don't vote, I'm not registered, they truly are voting. Because what they are doing is they are endorsing the status quo. They are accepting what is currently in place, and they are unwilling to become involved and to help change it for the better of all. And it becomes an unselfish act to do something like that. And that's what's up being a good citizen. Good citizen is becoming involved in the process.
Absolutely. I was over in Iraq, and people were all over the place there. They had their right index finger had purple ink on it. And I asked what was that all about, and they said, well, that's how we vote here. They dip their finger in some ink, and they put their fingerprint on the card. Now, 70% of the people turned out vote at the risk of death. Here in the United States, the most powerful, the most privileged country in the world, in our history, on a good day, you're lucky to get 40% of the people to stand up and vote. The apathy is amazing. And the people, your vote makes a choice. So people need to just take it serious.
Well, and Gil's, I mean, I had the same experience in Afghanistan. Is we called it the mark of death, because the Taliban, if you had a purple finger, you were signing a death warrant. And what was stunning to me is when they had polling and they had voting, people would hike for miles. And it was a source of pride to have been able to participate in the democratic process by casting your vote. And in the United States, in America, people don't understand the sacrifices made for the freedoms we enjoy, or now we take for granted. But they have to be protected. And when you look at Gil's experience, you look at what I saw in Afghanistan, where people were willing to risk their lives to be able to have a voice in the process. And all they have to do here in the state of Oregon is simply open up their ballot, fill it out, and mail it back in. They don't even have to go to the polling place. And we experienced less than 50% of the registered voters in any election. How can we make a difference? How can we, as you say with the Jefferson Republic, how can we move these ideas forward if people are not willing to become involved in the process?
Very good point. And, Drew actually has some input on that. And before I pull him in, I want to go back to Sheriff Gilbertson. It's kind of like a democracy. I saw this somewhere, and I probably won't get it right, but it's a cartoon. A democracy, basically, some guy rustles a cow, okay, and a bunch of people get together, and a posse gets together, and they go after him, and they catch him, and whether it's the right guy or not, they basically have a show of vote. And a majority rules. They raise their hands, they lynch them. Okay? Well, in a republic, the same thing happens. The same 35 or 50 town members go out and catch this alleged cattle rustler, and then they say, we're going to lynch him. And so, but the sheriff rolls in, and the sheriff says, we have certain laws within this land, and this person has the right to a fair trial. So the sheriff takes him in, incarcerates him temporarily or whatever. But the bottom line is this, is that mob rule versus the true republic form of government. And, that's just it. We're in a position right now where media and fashion is dictating reality. And I think I segued. I apologize. But anyhow, so if you wouldn't mind, Drew, I think that you might want to kind of chime in and share your views.
Well, okay, I've got a few of them. I don't know how popular my views are going to be within this group, but I don't mean any disrespect to anybody by any means. But I didn't enlist in the military after high school. A bunch of my friends signed up because they wanted to go go fight camel jockeys, over in the Middle East. And I looked at it for what it was. It was, a battle to protect some rich guy's oil field. It wasn't my fight. And I wasn't going to be really defending our way of life or protecting freedoms or anything like that, and I had no interest in it. And so I didn't enlist, and I was very tempted to. I'd taken my ASVAB, and the recruiters were bugging me all the time, but I chose not to go. And if they had a draft, I was going to refuse to go, because I didn't support those wars, and there hasn't been a single war or skirmish that this country has been in since that I support, and I don't see how any of these or people who have risked their lives, though I respect the risk, and that it was done in the interest of protecting our rights and freedom. I don't really see how it does, and actually I see how contributing to the military-industrial complex and serving it actually makes us less free, and we've seen an erosion of our freedoms greatly, especially since 9/11 and the implementation of the Patriot Act and the re-implementation of that and the NDAA, and we can get into that with Tom later on too. And so we've seen this, perversion, of our way of life, a complete elimination of the Posse Comitatus Act. And so I've got, we have all these people that have served, and they need to be honored and respected for that. But I hope that we don't glamorize war and just serving for the sake of serving, without looking at this corrupt government and the people that control it and seeing it for what it is, and making sure that we're not risking our lives or convincing the next generation that they need to risk their lives to serve it. And and that being said, Joseph made a good point about how most people don't vote, and Gary and I were talking about this a few weeks ago, and maybe, I don't know if even 20% of people voted, but we're looking at the results in Siskiyou County, where the Jefferson Republic almost passed. I think we had 45% support, but not very many people voted. So it really doesn't take that much of a push for those who are engaged and those people who care to actually implement some kind of a change. However, it is a double-edged sword. Voting is violent, and especially when it comes to things that are going to be paid for through property taxes, for example. I have neighbors that vote to force me to pay for things that I'm not interested in all of the time, and it's immoral and it's not fair. If you want to have a glorious library that looks like something out of the Roman Empire, well, then you pay for it. I'm not interested in that. And if you're really forced to pay for it with dollars that weren't taken against the will of other people, well, you'd have some kind of little cheap modular building where your library was at, and it would be operated by volunteers. But I look at my tax bills. I pay a lot of property taxes between properties that I own and properties that I lease, and the majority of those taxes go to pay for schools and school bonds. And I don't have any kids, and I'm not going to have any kids. And I used to look at it as well. These systems are creating the future workers, and I own businesses, and I want skilled laborers. But actually, the quality of the people coming out of the system is pretty poor. And I'm really not interested in hiring one of them. My latest helper got a GED and dropped out, and she's one of the sharpest. She's 19, one of the sharpest people that's ever worked for me. And I've had hundreds of people in my employ over the decades, and so I see this this problem, and I hope that if we are able to bring the Republic forth, that people would start to see things in a different light, where they wouldn't be willing to get together as a group, to inflict their will upon an individual who doesn't agree with them. Ben Franklin once said that democracy is to two wolves and a sheep arguing over what to have for dinner. The difference between a democracy and a republic is that the republic has the constitutional framework in place that protects the rights of the individual from the mongrel horde, and that's what we need. It's important that.
So basically, put in perspective. Okay, so a democracy is basically they put two wolves and a sheep into play to make the decisions.
Well, it's the tyranny. It's the tyranny of the majority,
right?
And what happens, especially when you have a bunch of lazy, greedy people, is that they think that they could just vote for free stuff. They don't understand where the money comes from. Well, a lot of it's just printed, right?
Well, what you said is making some sense. A democracy is mob rule. A republic is a different ballgame, and so many people intertwine the two, and they get them confused. We want to have, that's what we were based on, as a republic form of government, and those rules of law that we live by were meant to be that. We've turned into a democracy over the years, and things have changed, and we are what we are today. So, it's good that people are talking now about looking back at that old perspective of the Constitution, what it meant. It is a republic, and everything that it stands for. So I think, these discussions are good. They're fruitful. They're educational, and I think more of that has to happen.
Well, I agree with what Gil's saying, and I call America the great experiment.
Yes,
and it is. It's a beautiful experiment because our form of government has never been tried at the time any other place in the world. And if you look at an aristocracy, a monarchy, and you look at how our government's structured, we use all forms, and we've blended them together to develop a constitutional republic. I think, as I talked about a good citizen, I think part of I don't mind paying taxes, and I don't think anybody minds paying taxes, as long as the tax money is used responsibly. It is used for the betterment of the citizens and not on an agenda issue. And I understand where Drew comes from to a point, but there is a certain price we pay for freedom. And, some of the conflicts that are fought overseas, the benefit of that is they're not fought here on the U.S. soil. And, no one in this conversation has had to endure conflict on United States soil. We've always gone away someplace. But that's not to be discounted. I mean, I think there are two arguments in what he was discussing is the military-industrial complex is, a corporate interest. That's very, very different than, military going out to defend our nation and our ideals. And sometimes they do get blurred, and those lines do get blurred. But, 9/11 was an attack on U.S. soil. And no one had ever experienced that in any of our lifetimes. And it was the first time America truly had been attacked. And with that, we have fought that enemy, if you will, on foreign battlefields. It just didn't happen here in the United States. And I think there is a price to that freedom that we can literally sit right here and talk openly and freely and not have concerns about our First Amendment rights being restricted.
Absolutely. Take a look at World War II. The Japanese brought it here. We took it to them.
Yeah.
And the people here were safe as a result of that. So, yeah, we were in a foreign war, but there's so much to say about fighting it over there to protect our basic ideals back here. It is a world. We live on a planet. We live on many countries having different philosophies, but the ones that believe the way we do, I think we need to stand up and help them. We're not so powerful that we can go into a battle alone. Look at Bosnia, Kosovo, Iraq. We had other countries standing with us, but we were there, and if we wouldn't have been there, I mean, we were probably the strongest of all those nations. But had we not been there, these battles would have found their way to us. And look at ISIS. ISIS is chomping at the bits to come at us. So,
there
we
is.
can fight that battle over there and control it or eliminate it. I believe we're making the world a better place. I'm probably making a real strong statement there, but
well, actually, Gil, you're making a very strong statement, and I think it goes back to, we're fighting fights on foreign grounds, but you were talking about Japan, and behind every blade of grass,
yeah,
and that is kind of like, I'm getting no disrespect, but that's kind of like what's happening with us and in corporate America or our federal government. Whatever, I don't even know how to put a label on it, but I think that people need to understand that behind every blade of grass is a hero, is a patriot, and through the constitutional sheriff, through the constitutional government, through we the people having our inalienable rights to vote and express our ideals. I mean, that's what we got to get back to, and we've covered some pretty incredible topics today, and I'm just letting it roll because I'm in awe. However, I hear military, I hear anarchists, I hear Christianity, I hear a plethora of different views, but when it comes right down to it, it's like we're Americans, and by gosh, we've got to by God, we have got to do something and save, what the founding fathers put before us. And this has been, this is not over, but this has been an incredible conversation.
Well, I think you're absolutely correct there. I mean, I love my country. I don't trust the government at times. And I think what Drew was talking about, when you have a lot of corporate interests, and there's so many things that go on, and when you talk about the concept of the Jefferson Republic, and I look at that and think of the discussion, and I think why we're seeing the state of Jefferson, the Jefferson Republic, the Josephine Republic, whatever you tend to title it, I think what we are truly seeing is the frustration of the people, the American people, because they believe they've lost their voice in their government, and they want to take that voice back. And
that voice is we the people.
Exactly. And our government has derailed, and it literally is our responsibility to put it back on track. But to be able to do that, we have to pay attention. We have to put down the smartphones. We have to turn off the television. We have to go to other sources of information, other sources of media, and we have to get educated on the entire issue. And at times that can be uncomfortable conversations with friends, with relatives, but we have to increase in awareness. And believe me, when officials, representatives realize they're under scrutiny, people are paying attention, you will watch behavior change.
Yes.
And that behavior will finally roll back to what they're there for, representatives of the people.
Absolutely, yes. And this is what I love about this is, I've got two phenomenal military people. I've got a law enforcement. I mean, we've got Tom, which Tom has been pretty silent, and we've got Drew. And Drew, man, he wakes me up. Between him and Jordan Page, I was asleep. I mean, my dad and my good friend John Martinez, these guys have been trying to wake me up for a long time. But, I guess what I'm trying to say is we really have a diverse group of people that are having this conversation, this confab, and yet we're all on the same page.
Yes.
And we've got a different. I mean, my dog in the fight is the Shasta people. I desperately want to save the Shasta people from extermination through soft genocidal practices. I mean, I'm fighting the Department of Interior. I'm fighting the BIA, the Bureau of Indian Affairs, which is, of course, the old Department of War. I mean, and how am I doing that? I'm reaching out to the pioneers, the Martin family, the pioneers of Siskiyou County that we've been doctoring each other, the Shastas and I mean, as a community, we've got to come together and stand up for our rights. And this is a great forum because we all have different aspects of patriotism and loyalty to our country. And I'm kind of rambling a little bit right now because I'm thinking about Shasta stuff.
Well, I think, Gary, what you're touching on, and I don't know how Gil would feel, but I've traveled and worked around the world, and at the end of the day, what I have found is people want the ability to live in a safe environment. They want the ability to, put in a fair day's work for a fair day's pay and take care of their family and raise their family. They want the freedoms to be able to do that. And as I've traveled across, through the Asia-Pacific Rim into Southwest Asia, people are pretty much the same. They care about taking care of their families and living a pretty decent life. And we are not that different. When we tend to go the next level up and you start blending corporate interests with government interests, they forget why they're there.
There you go.
And that's where it becomes incumbent upon us to consistently.
Oh, bang! That's exactly where it's at. Tom, Drew, is Tom live or is it?
Yeah, I think we still have Tom with us. Tom, are you there?
Yes, sir, I am.
Hey, Tom. Okay, excuse me real quick. I'm just going to introduce Tom real quick. I met Tom, actually, at Jordan Page concert. Well, we talked on the phone prior to that, but Jordan Page is the velvet voice of the Republic movement. I mean, this guy's the deal. But yeah, Tom showed up, and his interest was to open up a dialogue in Siskiyou County with regards to the Oath Keepers. And what's really incredible is we've got a constitutional sheriff, and then we've got Drew, which is a healthy anarchist, and then we've got me, which is loyal to my tribal people, and we've got the military. We've got this whole group of people that have come together under one flag, and that flag is freedom and liberties. But so I met Tom through Jordan Page, or the concert that we put on. And Tom is, he's a retired peace officer. He lives in Coquille. I think he lives in Coquille still. He graduated from Alaska and Oregon Police Academies. He's worked in, high-level security, K-9 handler, private investigations. I mean, this guy's police dude. And just like Sheriff Gilbertson, just like our military, I'm going to say hero, Joseph Rice, just like Jordan Page, just like Drew Lamb. I mean, it's like he is bucking the system. And it actually goes against his odds, too. But yeah, I'd like to bring him into the conversation because I know that Joseph and Gil, you guys know him very well, and Drew has been very, very honored to have him on his show, and I'd like to bring him into the conversation because we're rolling down to 25 minutes, and I just want to bring more concept into this incredible conversation.
Okay, well, thank you guys for having me on here. I really appreciate it. I was really enjoying the show, listening. I can talk about it, but some real good information tonight. I'm happy to hear what's going on. And you talked about all the people that's on the phone call, but the real wind beneath our wings is the audience that's listening to our voices right now. And this is the crux of the force behind us, because there's so many people out there that need direction, and they're wondering what's going on. They're looking around. And we don't have all the answers, but we can sure direct people in the right areas to what they need to do to prepare for problems that are going to arise that we're seeing now. There's too many things going on around us, too much negativity, and we really only have each other to count on. So it's important that we do get together, that we do strategize, and be proactive instead of reactive.
Yeah, I agree. And so, okay, so now, Tom, you've had a really good opportunity to kind of absorb the Jefferson Republic movement. And like I said, it could be the Josephine Republic movement or the Siskiyou Republic movement, but you were there. I mean, you were like on ground zero, boots or moccasins on the path, boots on the ground.
Right.
What is your interpretation? I mean, what is your nexus between Oath Keepers and the Jefferson Republic movement?
The one thing that they have in common is the United States Constitution. What I see are Americans finally waking up. They're waking up on the wrong side of the bed, but that's a good thing because they're waking up angry and confused and insulted and berated, and they're tired of it. But the strength of this movement is the people. No matter what you call it, the Jefferson Republic, the state of, it doesn't matter. As long as people get together and follow the constitutional republic and work towards those goals to bring back our ways of life, our morals, our religious beliefs, get rid of certain things, the socialist programs like Common Core, the National Defense Authorization Act that destroys the constitutional the Bill of Rights. There's so many things that we're working on right now that we are addressing. We're getting right in their face about it and holding them accountable to us, we the people. We make the decisions, and it's important that we take that opportunity. We don't take it for granted that we use our abilities to vote people in, vote people out. I believe here in Coos County we had a vote here a while back, the referendum. I think it was 23 or some percent of the registered voters came out. It was just abysmal failure. I can't remember what the topic was, but people just have gotten into that mindset of let someone else deal with it instead of me. And we're at that point where we cannot afford to sit back and watch and wait and let other people do it. You have to be a voice, or you can't complain about it. And it's just so important to take advantage, not for granted, but take advantage of what we have in our constitutional republic. And getting back to democracy, 51%, the democracy is 51% deciding for the other 49. And that is mob rule, like Sheriff Gilbertson was saying. So we do live in a constitutional republic under democratic processes, is what it is. Unfortunately, the powers to be, ever since 1913 with the creation of the Federal Reserve Act and the Internal Revenue Service Act, created by the same animal to pay for it, we've never lived under a constitutional republic as it was seen by the forefathers. It's important that if we don't know what to do with ourselves, we need to look back to what our forefathers did and emulate them. Matter of fact, they're the ones that conquered this nation, this continent, to bring forth our republic and those cherished values and laws that we have, that they shed their blood and sacrificed their lives and farms for, then we owe that to them. And they are our fundamental examples. That they won and they did something right. So it's time that we emulate our founding fathers and work with each other towards our common goals. Nobody is coming to help us, not at all. People are coming to harm us. And people need to understand that and get prepared for problems, not to be scared of things, just to be very calm and be very alert of what's going on around you. Our southern borders are wide open to everything bad that's coming in with a lot of good. But aside from that, it's not a humanitarian issue with us. With us is a violation of Article 4, Section 4 of the U.S. Constitution, which requires the federal government to provide for all the states a Republican form of government to protect against invasion, and to promote domestic tranquility and prevent domestic violence. And their number one goal in serving the public is protecting the public's rights, not to delineate, but to ensure that those rights are not being violated.
That's very, very, very well put. Tonight I'm kind of in awe because we've got such an incredible group of people that are servants. We're all servants, and I guess my angle is the Shasta people, but that is through the Jefferson Republic movement, which is county by county, people having their voice, their opinion, their rights, and their freedoms upheld. And how do we collectively come together? I mean, this is an action question. Anybody chime in. But how do we collectively come together? Of course, we know that the vote counts. How do we move
people
forward?
People need to get active, and one good way to do that is reach out to the conservative organizations around you, and also the liberal side of it as well, because, for instance, the NDAA is a bipartisan, nonpartisan issue. It affects everybody equal. It takes away your constitutional rights to due process. You can be rendered into a country or entity and held without any form of due process, held against your will indefinitely. So that happens to Democrats, Republicans, Tea Partiers, you name it. It doesn't matter. If you're an American, we've been violated so many ways. With the Posse Comitatus Act has been eliminated. The Patriot Act. All of this stuff has been used against us, and it's going to continue to get worse unless we do something actively to stop it. But people need to get together with the people like Oath Keepers, the John Birch Society, Campaign for Liberty, the Jefferson issue. Start controlling your own county. We have hardly any economies left. The forestry is pretty much gone. The fisheries are pretty much gone. And they're wanting us to improvise, adapt, to overcome, or force us out of our rural communities for whatever reason, possibly Agenda 21. But that's opening another door.
Agenda 21. Honestly, that's reality.
You bet.
That's the deal.
I wanted to mention one thing before I forgot. Sheriff Jefferson had dealt with the federal government over the road issues through BLM and forestry, I believe. But also, the Josephine County chapter of Oath Keepers had brought up to the Josephine County Commissioners the issue about the gates to the Forest Service roads. Could you please let Joseph come in and talk about that for a moment?
Yeah, I can two things. I mean, one of the things that Gary, to kind of expand what Tom was saying, part of the things of go to a commissioner meeting, go to a city council meeting. Just get up out, walk out your door, and go attend a meeting and see what's going on. I mean, that's the start. When you talk about what can we do as good citizens as part of the community, is go see what's happening. Go to some of these planning council meetings. Go to a school board meeting. See what decisions are being made by your representatives and if they are truly acting as your representative, as they were elected to do. I mean, that's one thing. And kind of dovetailing into what Tom talked about, and Sheriff Gilderson's been kind of working on a plan. The lands that surround us, people confuse them. They title them federal property, and they're not. They're public lands. They're public property. They're our lands. We own them. What we do have is we have federal agencies that will manage those lands, or those public lands, BLM, United States Forest Service, wherever they happen to be. And there's been a proposal here in Josephine County that's been put forth to open up the gates and access to our public lands. I know Sheriff Gilbertson has something similar in mind in opening up the gates and having them patrolled by possibly volunteers. But these areas are, our public lands. It's another, in Josephine County, we can look at them, but we can't touch them. We can't interact with them. We can't get involved with them. And they sit there. They don't produce recreation for citizens of the county. They don't produce economies for the county. They're just kind of, they're out there. So I think those deals we can get out there and do. And it's one of those things where you have to get involved and find out what's going on, what proposals are before the Board of Commissioners, what ideas the sheriff has. And, it's part of the thing. Get involved, take back your lands.
If I can interject, I did submit what I call the Public Lands Patrol Deputy program to both the BLM and our commissioners. I have yet to sit down with them and have a discussion as a follow-up to that. But what I'm looking at, just a real quick history of these public lands. It was 1976 in Fletma that the federal government decided they would not dispose of these lands; they would maintain them themselves. So again, it was kind of out of the norm of the way to do things. They changed back in 1964. I think it was USGS changed the definition of roads, and what you're seeing now is if you have an area of 5,000 or more acres that is roadless, they can claim that as a national monument or some kind of a national park. But they did that over a long period of time. They've taken these steps to put these pieces of the puzzle together, and now we're looking at what they've developed. If you look at the Oregon state laws, they have what they call 2477 roads. Any road that, in fact, it's general law, I believe in 1901, Article 10, I think it is, talks about these roads, that if a road was in place out in the county and it was not challenged by a political subdivision, it was a permanent road. You have 2477 roads, which are granted right-of-way to the county. These roads belong to the county, not the federal government. My problem is in fact, I was at a situation we were looking for a lost individual up in the hills, and we thought he was in an area that we needed to get into, and I didn't have a key. In fact, the two keys I have did not fit any locks I've ever found. But I called U.S. Forest Service, asked them to bring a key to open that gate so we could get up there and look for this individual, and they refused to come. That really set me off. In fact, I had started asking questions, and the response I got was, I have to file a Freedom of Information request. Information I'm asking for, and I scraped myself off the ceiling. As the chief law enforcement official of this county, and in its entirety, jurisdiction of the turf, these lands, I don't care, they can call them anything they want to call them, it still falls under the sheriff's responsibility to deal with those issues. So if there's a crime, if there's a fire, if there's a lost individual, on and on and on, I will not abrogate any of that authority to anybody. It will remain with this sheriff's office. I believe in the integrity of the sheriff's office. We need to maintain that. The state of Oregon did pass legislation. They do recognize BLM, U.S. Forest Service, law enforcement people. And there's another dimension to this, too. It was back in I believe, 56 and 57, they conducted a research, and they called it the Eisenhower documents. And what they basically determined out of those, and it's voluminous, was the fact that local law enforcement was not going up into these public lands. We were busy dealing with criminals within the cities and in the counties, and pretty much neglected the public lands. And it was because of that that they actually categorized 4 different levels of proprietorship, if you would. And most of those lands are under proprietarial, basically meaning that it's not under their full control. We have some say. But again, as far as the chief law enforcement official goes, any crime that occurs up in any of these locations, the sheriff is responsible for. Now, obviously, right now we don't have the people that would be required to patrol that. But what I'd like to do is I'd like to see these roads, and they've done this other counties. They've actually told the U.S. Forest Service, BLM, you will lock these roads in the open position. And you cannot lock these gates to close these without written permission from a sheriff. So they've taken things that far in some counties. What I would like to see here is we have what we call Concerned Fathers Against Crime. It's a group of men and women that go out and do public patrols. They're not armed. They have no authority. They can't arrest anybody. They're not allowed to use any force in any way, shape, or form. They're basically eyes and ears for the sheriff's office. What I'd like to do is I'd like to have volunteers that would be interested, and strictly on your own money, your own risk. You're not a sworn deputy. You don't get a badge. But I would like to see a private group of citizens that are concerned about the health, safety, and welfare, and the criminal activity that they might encounter. Whereas everybody's got a cell phone, so you take a picture of a license plate, and you record what you saw, and you report that to the police, and hopefully we've got enough personnel we can deal with it. But these are public lands; they're for the people. These states are sovereign. The lands don't belong to the federal government. And again, I'll jump back to when we ceded the land back, it was in a trust. Well, in our government, and Gary, you can tell me this, our government has got a way of making agreements and treaties, and then one day they just change their mind, they turn around, they walk away, and they leave you high and dry.
Yeah, that's, yeah.
Whatever happened in the United States, it happens all the time. We have the ONC funding here. There's 18 counties that relied on the funding from the timber resources. Well, they've shut that down. We no longer can do that. We can't do any mining or mineral extractions. We sit in Josephine County. We sit on the largest, wealthiest mineral deposit on the entire West Coast, from what I've seen, and we can't touch it. Now, that would carry on for generations after generation in sustaining the services to the people. We're talking trillions and trillions of dollars in value in the western states. The eastern states, like I said before, were given back to the states, or the public lands were given back to the eastern states, but not here. And I got to still believe that the federal government is using that as a carrot, if you would, or collateral to borrow money from China. And talking about that, what did China just do to Argentina?
Oh, man.
They cleaned their clock. They've got a bill that they need to pay back to the Chinese, and the Chinese said you can either sell it or we're taking your property.
That's, Gil, you're hitting on some heavy stuff.
Yeah, it's scary. And it's a matter of people need to wake up and really see what's going on around them. It may not impact them directly today, but at some point down the road, it's going to impact their future generations in a negative way. So, we need to do this. We need to approach this thing in a responsible, carefully thought out way. I'm certainly against any radical operations or things that people do that are outside the norms. But we need to wake up. We need to talk about these things, and we need to engage our government at our level to stand up for us, because they do work for us. I work for the people. I know who my boss is. These legislators and so forth in our government at the state levels, they know who they work for too, but the lobbyists somehow kind of get involved and twist things well beyond what we would like to see into something that we'd rather not see. But
I've got something that, Gil, if I can cut in here. I wanted to say that I've been around a lot of law enforcement individuals, sheriffs, chiefs, etc. And I know a good sheriff when I see it, a good police chief when I see him. And it's such a blessing to have Sheriff Gilbertson. I'm not just saying this. No, he's not a hero. Right? None of us are. But how you've got a constitutional sheriff taking care of that county on such a shoestring, he deserves a hand. I mean, he really, truly does, because people don't realize what they have until you see what Sheriff Gilbertson's been doing and the sacrifices that him and his department have made. I want to revert real quick back to peace officers in general. What we see on the social networks is a lot of cop bashing. And we're seeing a lot of the negativity, and that's what gets spread around. You rarely see the attaboys, and one crap will wipe out a dozen attaboys. And that's what people focus on is a negative. There's so many good police officers out there, and we consider them oath keepers because they have taken the oath, but we consider that until it's proven otherwise, and then we deal with it accordingly. There's 3 levels of constitutional protections, of course, both constitutions and the law enforcement code of ethics. But people need to get behind the sheriff and help him to help them, because if the sheriff falls in this county, so does the people, and so does their rights. You have one of the best speakers and representatives for your rights in having the highest elected official of the county right there, Sheriff Jefferson. I encourage people to keep him in and vote for him when it comes up in November. And that's my personal opinion.
I don't mean to interrupt. I'm sorry, but we're like about 3 minutes to the end of the show, and so I just want to give total respect to the people that were here tonight. I just, man, what an honorable thing. Yeah, so honorable. So basically, we're gonna go into a fade out, and the bumper is going to roll in at 6:59. So that gives us 2 minutes. And if there's anybody wants to say anything for 30 seconds, because I got to roll out some credits.
I do. Gary, would you share with us any questions that might be called in? I'd like to be able to answer any questions that anyone has.
Oh
boy, I don't think we have time for that. However,
not today, but if you do get subsequent calls.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, Sheriff Gilbertson, I actually think we need to pick this conversation up next week, and because I think we're covering some incredible ground here. So what we'll do is we'll field whatever questions there are out there, and I think we'll carry it on next week. And I think Drew would be happy to do that, and I think Tom and Joseph would be happy to do that as well. I think.
Sure, I can do that.
Okay, so we're at 6:58, and we're about ready to roll out. And basically, I just want to thank the listeners. Drew, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Drew.
Oh, no, I was just sorry. I just kind of do a real quick thing. As I was talking about Good Citizen, with the Oath Keeper group in Josephine County. One thing we're planning on towards the end of the month, and we welcome participation from anybody within the county, is we're going to do a community preparedness day.
Okay, hang on. We're rolling out. So
all right.
I want to give a big shout out to my friend Darren Worth. This guy is
rolling steel, grip of the pavement, grip of the wheel. In my face, I'm riding the wind at full